Well, we start this hour with a GB News exclusive. More than 3,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel in the longest run of good weather so far this year. More than 3,250 people crossed the Channel in 11 straight days of small boat activity. The run of good weather results in the biggest single-day figure for the year so far, when 872 people crossed in 15 small boats on Saturday, and that was on the 2nd. So there's a run of good weather there, and that has now topped 3,000 people. But the thing that really concerns me, apart from all of it, actually, is that apparently now human traffickers have been telling the migrants to be violent, encouraging violence in order to help get them across the Channel. And that leads the question, I think, pretty obviously, about what kind of person are we really importing into Britain. Mark White joins me now, our Home and Security Editor. Mark, those numbers stark but not surprising, especially in light of the fact that we've seen some French border guards getting rather boozed up as well, which I think is absolutely hilarious, apart from the fact that we're paying for that. And the levels of violence, it appears now, that some people are willing to go to get to Britain, I think should be a concern.
Yeah, I think this is perhaps an indication of what those French police are doing when they're not boozing up in the hotels at the end of the shift on the beaches around Calais and Dunkirk. There's no doubt that, however frustrated we might be that they're not doing what the Belgians do, which is when these boats get into the water, they turn them back. They have the policy of when the boats hit the water, they stand back. But they have been trying to go to some of the busier beaches to get to the boats to puncture them. But as a result of that, what we've been seeing in recent months is a shift towards much more in the way of violence on those beaches. And we had a court case just at the end of last week, Patrick, in which two migrants who had attacked French police officers, they'd been part of a mob that had attacked them on a beach near Calais, were caught eventually when they actually got across the Channel. There was 51 of them who attacked those police officers who were trying to puncture their boat on the beach. They managed to fight the officers off, then get across to the UK. They were subsequently arrested and convicted. But this is part and parcel of what I think the people smugglers are doing. They're trying to make sure that those migrants who are taking to the boats know what to do and are robust against the French to try to stop the boats being punctured so that they do get off to sea. Yeah, indeed. Look, in the last hour, and I think we might be able to bring up some more footage in just a second, actually, which was of these French border guards, police, you know, down the pub after a shift, dancing on tables, the belt comes off. A report from the Express said that they were spending, you know, hundreds of pounds worth of essentially British taxpayers' money on booze. There are reports of them starting fights, groping women, all of this stuff. Part of me thinks that everyone's allowed down the pub after a day at work, and certainly I don't condone, by the way, the groping of women or the starting of fights. It's more the drinking that I'm talking about here. But the fact is they were saying there that they weren't necessarily doing everything that they possibly could to stop these migrants. And then I think, well, if they're dealing with people throwing stones, waving, you know, knives or bits of wood at them and starting fires and things all day, every day, and that is it becoming increasingly regular, I'd be more inclined to wave those people off as well. Yeah. Well, listen, a couple of things I'd say about this, obviously, in the Express, and this particular story today, which really, to look at it, you know, it seems quite shocking, but effectively what that is are police officers who are on assignment. They have been sent to, they're not from Calais, they've been sent to Calais or Dunkirk. They're staying in local hotels around that area. It's at the end of their shift. They're having drink, they're having fun, they're relaxing. If they were doing that instead of actually being on the beaches, then you could be angry and annoyed with them. But yeah, you know, listen, they're doing. I've been on plenty of assignments with lots of other journalists where the scenes are not dissimilar when we're all staying down route in a hotel. So I'm not going to criticise the French. No, I think it is a bit galling, though, for the British taxpayer to just see that. I mean, I think we can all understand that people, you know, like a party. But I suppose if it's the thought of, look, we're paying for that. Well, are we paying for that? I mean, they will get probably expenses to stay at the hotel, but wherever they might be assigned, if it's away from base, that's what's happening to them. You could argue that, yes, in the round, I suppose indirectly, there is UK taxpayers' money that is paying for them to be in a hotel. But they've done their shift. They've done their shift on the beach, being attacked by the people smugglers and the migrants. I don't begrudge them going and having a couple of beers at the local hotel. The bigger story for me, I think, is the way in which these people smugglers are becoming increasingly desperate, because there is no doubt from what we're witnessing on the other side of the channel, the French are making a bit of a difference around Calais and Dunkirk. It's pushing the people smugglers much further south in order to then get the beaches off, the boats off the beaches further south. It's a logistical nightmare for them to get the boats all the way south, to get the migrants all the way south to do that. So I think they're getting increasingly frustrated. They're getting increasingly violent and encouraging the migrants to be increasingly violent to ensure they get offshore.
Well, they are.
That's the biggest story.
It is the biggest story. And also, as well, there's a few stories rolled into one here, because then you could say, well, the British taxpayer is paying twice. So the British taxpayer is paying for the French to stop or not stop boats, etc. But then we're also paying for the people who do make it across. And if those people have used violence in order to get here, I would argue that should immediately stop you from coming. I don't think you are any longer a poor refugee, desperate need and all of this stuff. If you've attacked French police in order to get to Britain.
I think that's a very legitimate point. They managed to identify two individuals that we were talking about at the end of last week who'd attacked the French officers on the beach because they'd got close enough to the officers. This is the footage here, and you'll see it in a second where we've slowed down this footage, and then it will zoom right in on this individual. That's what the Border Force and police were able to do, and they could identify a couple of these people off the boats. But they weren't the only two. There was 50-odd people on the beach, and a very significant number of them weren't just coming and swinging sticks, but they were throwing rocks at the police officers, and that's what actually injured the officers.
Yeah, and I think it's legitimate to ask, isn't it? Look, on top of this, we are dealing with people who clearly have travelled a heck of a long way to get there, and that's the final leg of their journey, and they don't want to be blocked from doing that leg, and so are willing to resort to, I would say, extremely violent tactics in order to get to Britain. I think that much is obvious. I would then have serious concerns about, let's say, we put them in a hotel or a B&B or whatever, and they don't like it. Or then we say to them, we're going to deport you. Have we imported some people who are clearly very willing to use violence?
Well, this gets back to the crux of the issue that the government has argued about for some time and has, I think, a very legitimate point, which is the fact that we don't know who the majority of these people are, because the vast majority of them destroy their documents, throw their identification documents like their passports, cards, mobile phones, things that could make it easier for the authorities to get a handle on exactly who these individuals are. Interestingly, there is some legislation that is going to be starting to work its way through Parliament this week, which is aimed at ensuring that those who assess people's asylum claims take into consideration if they don't have documents, if they've destroyed or throwing away the documents. And that's a big black mark against them if that's the case.
You know, I earlier today, actually, I spent this morning at a very interesting place, and I'm going to be putting out what I've found here later on this week. I was at another shipping container accommodation centre in Ealing. And what I witnessed there, and again, we'll put this together as a package, I'll get it out later in the week, but was legal immigrants and British citizens being forced to live in uninhabitable conditions, like actually uninhabitable conditions, right? And I got quite angry at the fact that some of those people that we are seeing now coming across the channel will bump those people down a priority waiting list. And I think this is going to end up being a big issue of our time, really, that people who are prepared to use violence, come here illegally, throw their documents overboard, you know, all of that stuff, are in this country treated as more of a priority as legal immigrants with kids and British citizens, again, often with very young kids, who are forced to live in some of these shipping container things. And I think that's a massive issue.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and a lot of people will relate to that as well, because I was up in Blackpool at the end of last year, up in Blackpool, seeing homeless people on the streets, sleeping in doorways, in the shadow of a hotel that was full of asylum seekers. And amongst those homeless people were 2 ex-veterans. So you can understand absolutely the real anger that there is out there in the community and what they see as preferential treatment for people who have crossed into this country illegally. Because remember, it is now illegal. We've passed the illegal immigration bill in the Commons, which means anyone crossing the Channel now, you can't refer to them really as asylum seekers because they're deemed to have entered the country illegally according to what is on the statute books.
All right, Mark, look, thank you very much. Whizzing us through a few stories from the Channel there. The number's 3,000 in the last 11 days. Also having a look at the human traffickers there telling some of these people to use increased levels of violence in order to get to Britain. And, of course, that issue that we're paying the French around 500 million quid. And what are we getting? Are we just getting a load of boozed-up French border guards going out on the razz all the time?